Welcome back, Night Wanderer. Tonight, you're slipping quietly into a chapter of history they definitely forgot to teach in school. By the way, if you were actually there, you'd probably have been arrested, eaten badly pickled turnips, or caught something that doesn't have a modern name, but does have pus. But don't worry, tonight, you're only here in spirit. Before we set off, do that slow scroll to like and subscribe. But only if these sleepy little time loops are your thing. And tell me where in the world you're watching from and what time your clock says. It's strangely comforting knowing who else is still up. Now lights low, maybe grab a blanket or let your ceiling fan hum away in the background. Time to drift gently back, one step at a time. You wake up in darkness. Not the clean, modern kind of darkness with a phone glowing gently beside you and the vague assurance of central heating humming somewhere in the background. No. This darkness is tactile. It sticks to your skin like soot. It smells faintly of damp straw, old smoke, and the kind of fermented despair only rice husks can produce. You're lying on a futon. Well, they call it a futon. Really, it's a straw mat stuffed with other older straw mats. Beneath that is a woven tatami floor, which feels like a series of coiled rope bruises pressing into your side. The futon is thin. Your joints know this intimately. Your shoulders ache like they've been in a politely violent duel with the night air. Above you, the rafters creak. Not ominously, just enough to remind you that the beams are held together by rope, wishful thinking, and the absence of earthquakes. It's early. Before the birds, before even the village rooster has finished contemplating its life choices. But someone, maybe you, is already awake. Not by choice, not with joy. You awaken not because of some natural rhythm or peaceful dream, but because your bladder is full, your limbs are cold, and someone nearby has started coughing in a way that implies either mild congestion or imminent death. You sit up slowly. Your body resists. Your knees sound like two pieces of bamboo tapping together. You pull the scratchy linen blanket tighter around your shoulders. It doesn't help much. Linen here is not soft, it's not high thread count, it's something between burlap and resentment. A soft wind whispers through the shoji, the sliding paper door, and you feel it like a ghost brushing past your cheek. The paper has holes. Everything has holes. The house breathes more freely than you do. Your first view of the day is the interior of your single-room farmhouse. There is no furniture. Not really. A hearth sits in the middle of the floor. A sunken square with gray ash crusted at the edges, still warm from last night's fire. A kettle hangs above it on a blackened hook, wobbling slightly like it has secrets. There are baskets against one wall, woven, fraying, filled with tools, bowls, one slipper you lost 2 days ago, and something that may or may not be a dried eel. You don't look too closely. Looking closely often leads to regret. You hear soft shifting beside you. Family, or what's left of it. Everyone sleeps together, side by side like sardines. If sardines were unshowered, sleep-talking, occasionally gassy human beings. Your younger sibling mumbles in their sleep and throws a hand across your chest. Their fingernails are sharp. You pretend not to mind. The air smells of charcoal, body odor, rice vinegar, and something faintly sour you can't identify. A leftover pickled plum? A curse from an ancestor? The scent of poverty having a conversation with mold? It's all possible. Welcome to morning. You rise, carefully. There is no privacy. There are no separate rooms. The concept of alone time hasn't been invented yet. Your parents are snoring a few feet away. Your grandmother has already opened one suspicious eye, and a chicken is watching you through the broken panel in the wall. You step over sleeping limbs like a rice field ninja and make your way to the side of the house. You slide the shoji aside. The early dawn greets you with a breeze that cuts through your cotton robe like gossip through a small village. Outside, the world is still asleep. Mist clings to the rice paddies like a sad, wet blanket. Trees sway in the breeze, whispering conspiratorially. The mountains in the distance wear a crown of fog, ancient and unimpressed. You squat near the edge of the house and relieve yourself into a chamber pot that has served 3 generations and somehow still smells like the first one. You wonder briefly if enlightenment is real, and if anyone's ever achieved it while peeing into a bamboo bucket. You wipe with yesterday's crumpled prayer sheet, apologies to the bodhisattva of mercy, and set the pot aside to be dumped later into the compost heap that feeds next season's daikon. Circle of life. Smells like shame. You stretch, your back pops like fireworks. The horizon shifts from indigo to bruise-colored gold. Somewhere, a neighbor's dog begins barking at an invisible injustice. The rooster, having finally resolved its internal doubts, screams into the ether. Inside, the house stirs. You hear your grandmother's soft chant, morning prayers. Your mother clears her throat like a warning. The tea kettle groans. And so, the day begins. With cold fingers, with stiff joints, with the quiet understanding that today will be exactly like yesterday, but with slightly more mud. But for now, you stand in the doorway, scratching yourself in a place no one talks about, watching the sun struggle to rise like it's also unsure if this day is worth the effort. And in that moment, chilled, itchy, and vaguely hungry, you are, without question, a peasant in Edo-era Japan. Welcome home. You wake to the sound of nothing, which is to say, you wake to the sound of everything. The creak of roof beams adjusting in the dawn chill, the distant thump of a neighbor's mortar pounding rice, the wet cough of your grandfather in the next room, who has been nearly dying for 6 years now, and a rooster who seems personally offended by your continued existence. You lie on a futon that is only technically a futon. It's a flattened pile of straw stuffed into a cotton sleeve, more mildew than cushion. If you are lucky, your side of it hasn't been colonized overnight by rice weevils, or the tiny spider that lives in the seam by your left ear, whom you've named quietly in your head, though doing so might constitute blasphemy, or possibly idolatry. You've lost track. The air is cold. Not the dramatic cinematic kind of cold with glistening frost and visible breath, but the kind of cold that seeps under your knees and into your kidney area and makes your joints move like they're underwater. Your nose is the first to realize you're no longer in dreams. It's freezing. Your fingers are next. They curl and uncurl like stiff claws, bone-weary from yesterday's work even in sleep. You turn your head. Your little sister is curled next to you like a cat, drooling into your only shared pillow. She smells like fermented miso and childhood neglect, which is to say, normal. There is no privacy in your home. There are no bedrooms, just paper screens, a single stove, and a system of social denial. If someone farts, you do not hear it. If someone speaks to a ghost, you were never awake. If someone dies quietly in the corner, you'll help tidy up after breakfast. Outside, a breeze shuffles through the trees. Inside, it finds the holes in your wall. Your house is made of wood, wattle, and the kind of plaster that only technically counts as insulation. The cold wraps around you, not violently, but like a disappointed parent, firm, ever-present, and somehow your fault. You rise slowly. Your back cracks like a brittle bamboo stalk. Your feet touch the floor. Smooth, cold tatami mats that have seen better centuries. The straw inside them is packed tight with age, speckled with tiny black mildew blooms you pretend not to notice. You wonder if the monk at the temple ever blesses homes against mold. You doubt it. He's busy copying sutras and trying not to blink too loud. You shuffle toward the family hearth, which is really just a sunken rectangle in the center of the room. It hasn't been lit yet. No one wants to waste precious firewood before absolutely necessary. You crouch beside it anyway, hoping proximity alone might warm you. It doesn't. Your toes throb with betrayal. Your mother is already awake. Of course she is. She's always awake. You've never seen her sleep, actually. You suspect she might not. She's kneeling on a bamboo mat, pounding cooked soybeans into paste with a glazed look on her face that says, "I once dreamed of being a dancer in Osaka. And now this." She doesn't greet you. You don't greet her. This is not unkindness. It's cultural efficiency. Words are rationed like rice, and yours are especially limited before the sun is up. You nod. She grunts. It is a conversation. The morning routine begins with small chores, and each one feels designed by a committee of sadists with a vendetta against your lumbar spine. You refill the water bucket at the village well. It's a short walk, but in the early light the path is muddy and populated with half-frozen frogs who may or may not be omens depending on their direction of hop. You try not to think about it. At the well, a neighbor is already there. She does not acknowledge you. She spits into the grass, hauls her bucket, and trudges away with a grace only achieved by sheer spite. You mimic her movements, but your bucket is heavier, your arms are weaker, and you are not yet old enough to summon her level of existential disdain. Back home, you deposit the water beside the hearth and begin grinding tea leaves with a mortar and pestle. The smell is earthy, grassy, bitter, like powdered resentment and pondweed. It's not for you. The tea is for your father, who will emerge at sunrise, say nothing, drink it, and then point vaguely in the direction of your next chore. That is the rhythm of your mornings. Wordless service, green dust in your fingernails, a stiff nod passed like a baton in a relay race of quiet disappointment. Your father appears on cue. He scratches his scalp with a comb that might also double as a weapon, squints at you, and accepts the tea. He sips, he grunts. You are dismissed. You sneak a glance out the doorway. The village is slowly yawning into motion. Smoke curls upward from a dozen cook fires. A child is crying, which is normal. A dog is barking, which is also normal. A crow is staring at you with the uncanny stillness of something that might be possessed. You consider bowing to it. You do not, but you think about it. You return to the corner to help with breakfast preparation. Boiling rice gruel, stirring dried radish into miso soup, and portioning yesterday's pickled vegetables into tiny, cracked ceramic dishes. You steal a nibble of pickled daikon. Your mouth implodes. You forget what year it is. You regain consciousness with tears in your eyes. Your mother says nothing. She watches. She knows. That's how you learn. The smell of burning wood begins to fill the house as the fire is finally lit. It chokes at first, smoke curling up through the hole in the ceiling that is supposed to function as a chimney, but also lets in moths, spiders, and judgmental moonlight. You cough, your sister coughs, your grandfather wheezes, which you take as applause. Breakfast will follow shortly, but that's another chapter. For now, your body has remembered the cold, the weight of obligation, and the small, ceaseless ache of living a life that is entirely accounted for. From the straw in your pillow to the Tommy under your feet, there is no mystery, no privacy, no room to become anyone other than who you already are. But hey, at least the crow didn't curse you. Yet. Still cold? Don't worry. The day will warm up. Eventually, but not before it gets worse. You duck your head as you step out of the futon's embrace, if we can even call it an embrace, given its consistent refusal to actually insulate anything below your knees, and into the single room you dare to call home. Calling it a house would be generous. It is, technically, 4 walls and a roof, but that definition stretches reality almost as much as your aching calves stretch toward the embers in the corner. The walls, thin as secrets and made of washi paper, ripple in the breeze that shouldn't even be there. Shoji screens divide what little space exists, if only to offer the illusion of privacy. And the wood they're framed with? Cedar mostly, but aged, cracked, and slightly bowed from years of fighting the elements without ever winning. You can hear everything. Your grandmother's faint cough, the chickens discussing politics in the coop outside, the village drunkard relieving himself against a tree several houses away. The paper walls amplify life rather than contain it. Privacy isn't a right, it's a memory, a foreign concept reserved for daimyo and ghosts. The tatami floor beneath your feet creaks gently. Not a dramatic groan, no, just the sort of complaint made by woven straw mats that have soaked in too many feet, spills, and candle wax accidents. They are soft-ish in the way that sleeping on dried pasta might be soft-ish. Beneath that, bare earth, because nothing says comfort like a floor you can dig through with a stick. At one end of the room is a small orori, a sunken hearth with the remnants of a fire you coaxed into life last night. It's still warm if you lie directly on your stomach and press your face against the ash, which, frankly, you've considered more than once. The orori is both lifeline and liability. It provides light, heat, and a communal gathering spot. It also fills your home with smoke that escapes through a modest hole in the ceiling, assuming the wind cooperates. Spoiler, it rarely does. That's why the ceiling, made of soot-stained bamboo and more paper, now bears the intricate inkblot art of smoke marks. Patterns like creeping fingers, or perhaps symbolic representations of your steadily eroding lung capacity. If you've ever wondered what passive smoking inside a wooden coffin might feel like, welcome. You've arrived. The windows, if you dare use the term, are more like translucent suggestions. They don't open. They don't shut, they flutter. You occasionally try to patch them with rice glue and hope, but moisture always finds its way through. A permanent fog rests on the inside of the paper when it's cold, which is often. And then there's the roof. Thatched, theoretically. But every season chips away at its structural confidence. Rain seeps in through whatever crack the wind bullies open. You've placed small gourds underneath to catch the drips, a rural symphony of soft plunks that punctuate your dreams. Sometimes you imagine the gourd rhythm as music. Other times, it sounds like time itself dissolving. Let's not forget the visitors. Mice are practically roommates. Moths treat your dried vegetables like a dating buffet. Spiders form complex trade unions in the rafters. And at least once, a snake curled up behind your folded futon, either for warmth or companionship. You never asked which. None of this is surprising. Homes in your era aren't insulated, not emotionally and certainly not physically. Every season leaves a mark. Summer bakes the wood. Winter carves its chill into the floor. Autumn leaves seep in through the cracks like mournful confetti. You try to keep things clean because order is the only form of control you're allowed. A bamboo broom, some rice straw brushes, and a near-religious dedication to dusting are your only weapons. But dust isn't the enemy. It's family. It always returns, and it doesn't knock. There's a low shelf holding folded cloth, a chipped bowl, and a lacquer box passed down from someone you were likely related to but can't remember. Beside it hangs a tattered wall scroll bearing a faded ink painting of a mountain you'll never visit. You tell yourself it's Mount Fuji, though it might just be a stylized turnip. At the edge of the room is the single thing with dignity, the kamedana, a household Shinto altar. It's humble, wooden, and carefully tended, even if the offerings are modest. A pinch of rice, a stub of candle, a hope that maybe, just maybe, the kami will ignore your many failings and keep the rats from chewing through your sandals. Speaking of sandals, they sit by the doorway, worn smooth, damp from morning dew, and suspiciously warm. You suspect a cat has nested in them again. Outside, the morning has begun painting pale light through the paper walls, illuminating every imperfection like a judgmental museum spotlight. And just beyond your home, other houses crouch like siblings, all bowed under the same taxes, the same weather, the same slow erosion of dreams. You breathe in, and immediately regret it. Smoke, mildew, old tatami, and something distinctly rodent-adjacent. But you breathe in anyway. Because that's what living here is, the daily decision to keep breathing, even when the air bites back. You kneel before the aurori to nudge yesterday's embers back to life, fanning them with a sliver of paper. You burn your fingers slightly, but you don't curse. Cursing is reserved for when the taxes arrive. Outside, a rooster shrieks like it has just discovered death. A neighbor sneezes with tragic enthusiasm. Somewhere down the road, a wooden cart groans beneath a sack of daikon. And through it all, your house sits, a creaking, breathing box of smoke, straw, vermin, and prayer. It is not cozy, it is not quiet, but it is yours. And in this era, that's worth almost as much as a full bowl of rice. Almost. Welcome back to your daily culinary gauntlet, or as it's optimistically called here, breakfast. You've managed to survive the cold floor, the drafty walls, and the shrieking rooster that might, in a just world, be soup by next week. But justice is not something your village deals in regularly. What it does deal in is not always fresh, not always warm, and rarely more than mildly depressing. Your stomach is awake before your legs are. That low, hollow groan doesn't just announce hunger, it performs it. It's a one-man no play of nutritional yearning. And yet, you already know, the food you crave is not the food you will receive. You trudge across the creaking floorboards to the low kitchen area, which is not so much a room as a fire pit surrounded by regret. The hearth, or aurori, is still warm from the previous night's embers. That's a small mercy. One of those fleeting comforts that briefly fools you into thinking today might not be entirely terrible. You are, of course, mistaken. Your mother or grandmother, or possibly you, depending on who woke first, takes on the sacred, underappreciated role of rice-rinsing oracle. The rice, kept in a woven basket and strictly rationed thanks to your status as a peasant, is scooped out by the cupful. You watch the cold, opaque water swirl around the grains as they're washed in a ceramic bowl. It's a cloudy spiral of yesterday's dust, insect legs, and modest hopes. The rice is dumped into an iron pot with just enough water to count as a gamble. Too much, and it becomes a sad soup. Too little, and you get crunchy recrimination. It simmers over the aurori as thin wisps of steam rise, visible in the pale morning light that filters through washy windows like divine disappointment. There is no coffee, there is no miso soup, there are no eggs, no bacon, and no soft jazz playing from a Bluetooth speaker on the counter. There is pickled radish, takuan, and it has opinions. The yellow slice is taken from a ceramic jar that smells like something your modern self might associate with a medical waste bin. It's sour, a little sweet, and carries the olfactory punch of fermented footnote. Its color is the exact hue of old parchment left in the sun too long. And it squeaks between your teeth like it wants you to know it could have been something better, but chose not to be. You eat it anyway. Because in the Edo period, food doesn't nourish, it tests you. Beside the rice and pickle is a single strip of dried fish, often grilled quickly over the coals, then left to cool to ambient disappointment. If it's too salty, that's fine. Salt is a preservative. If it's not salty enough, then it's probably going off, and you won't know until your belly makes that clear later. The texture of the rice is honest. Each grain is a starchy ghost of what it could have been with a little butter or soy sauce, neither of which is currently in your budget or social class. You chew because chewing is part of the ritual. You eat in silence, not because of any meditative discipline, but because words might break the spell of acceptance. The family sits on the floor around the hearth, knees tucked, backs curved like commas in a sentence no one wants to finish. There is no idle chatter. Conversations are brief, functional, and involve the weather, harvest speculation, or whose sandals are mysteriously missing again. It's always your brother. He bartered them for sweets and then lied about it. You sip tea. Not the fancy kind with ceremony and fans and long-handled ladles, but the peasant's tea, brown rice tea, genmaicha, made from the leftover bits that didn't get eaten. It tastes like roasted thrift and faint forgiveness. The tea is warm and it fogs your lips and nose gently as you hold the cup close to your face. For a moment, you pretend it's something else, something decadent, something modern. But no, this is the Edo period, and fantasy is taxed at 60%. A digression, if I may. Did you know samurai, the very men you've probably imagined as noble warriors, often ate better than you but still complained? Their rice was white, polished, and soft, their fish salted and carefully grilled. They had miso soup with actual ingredients in it. And yet, many of them longed for the simplicity of village life. Isn't that adorable? They romanticized your current suffering the same way modern influencers romanticize cabin life without plumbing. Back to you. You scrape the last clump of rice from your bowl with practiced efficiency. Not out of greed, no. That would require more calories than you currently possess. It's habit. It's discipline. Waste is unacceptable. Leftover rice is sometimes dried for rice crackers, or added to broth, or simply mourned. The pickled radish lingers in your mouth, haunting your breath like a culinary ghost. It will accompany you throughout the day like a low-level spirit guide of questionable value. After the bowls are emptied, someone, again, possibly you, rinses them with lukewarm water and scrubs them gently with a ball of rice straw. Soap is a rumor. Clean is a philosophy. Hygiene is whatever keeps the rats uninterested for another few hours. You rise, stomach full, in the same way a person might say their heart is full after watching a tearjerker. It's an emotional lie, but a comforting one. Your body isn't satisfied, but it has been acknowledged. And so, you step into your day, bowing politely toward the cold morning breeze that greets you like an uninvited sensei. You've survived breakfast. Somehow that feels like an achievement. Of course, now you must work, but that's tomorrow's suffering. For now, just let the rice settle, let the tea warm your insides, and let the ghosts of ancient hunger murmur you back into your sleepy blanket cocoon. Because the past, dear traveler, was not kind. But at least it's polite enough to let you rest. Ah, you're awake. Again, the rain hasn't stopped, the roof still leaks. And now, just to spice up your life, you have taxes due. But first, the rice fields. You shuffle through the doorway, the threshold worn from generations of weary feet. Your sandals are already soaked. That doesn't matter. Your feet will be encased in mud within minutes anyway, and not the pleasant spa-like mud. No, this is clingy, cold, manure-flavored loam, so thick it could pull a toenail off if you step wrong. The sun rises behind a veil of cloud, giving off the impression of light without the actual benefit. Morning light in the rice paddies isn't golden. It's gray. Greasy gray. Like miso soup left out overnight with a skin forming on top. You squint at it, then look away. It's not getting brighter anytime soon. The tools await you. A hoe, a sickle, a handcart with a wheel that always pulls left. You pick up the hoe. It feels heavier today. You convince yourself it's the humidity, not your soul. Welcome to the life of a hayakusho, a Japanese peasant. You farm rice and the government takes it. Roughly 40% of it, though who's counting? You are. Always. But the magistrate insists that a bad harvest is your fault. Let's review your economic freedom. Your land? Technically belongs to the daimyo. Your crop? Already measured in advance by the taxman. Your complaints? Considered borderline treason. You trudge to the edge of your assigned row. It looks like every other row, but you know exactly which one is yours. It haunts your dreams. You begin to till, slowly dragging the blade through the sodden earth. Each stroke is a prayer to the gods of blisters and bent posture. You're not alone, of course. A line of fellow villagers dots the horizon. Wide conical straw hats casa bob in rhythm like mushrooms in a field. No one speaks. Why would they? There's nothing new to say. And besides, talking slows you down. The tax rice doesn't plant itself. Oh yes, tax rice. Because it's not just food, it's currency. Rice is wealth, rice is power, and you're farming a fortune you will never taste. Every grain of it has already been promised to someone else. The shogun, the daimyo, the retainers, the merchants, possibly the shrine cat. Everyone gets a cut, except you. You get what's left, and what's left is often moldy. The village headman may come by today with his bamboo tally sticks carved with the characters for your name, your field number, and your soul's approximate value. You smile politely and bow so low your forehead collects mud. He marks something down. You're not told what. You are simply informed later that your family is once again slightly behind. Behind what? Behind enough. There's a boy a few rows down, no older than 7. He's working too, dragging a rake twice his height. You're reminded gently that childhood doesn't really exist here, not in the modern, tender sense. You're born, you cry, you walk, and then you work. If you're lucky, you live long enough to see your own children skip the crying phase and go straight to the hoeing. The rain intensifies. Each droplet taps your straw hat like a nervous accountant tallying mistakes. The mud rises to your calves. Leeches drift near your ankles like suspicious accountants tallying you. You ignore them. What are they going to do? Drain you further? Lunch arrives when the sun reaches its highest grayness. You gather with the others beneath a crooked lean-to. Everyone squats in silence, unwrapping rice balls. Yours is half mold. You eat anyway. Mold, after all, is a flavor, a bitter, bloomy one, like despair on sourdough. You glance at your neighbor. She's chewing slowly, eyes half closed, face unreadable. Is she meditating, mourning, or simply trying not to cry into her rice? After lunch, more rows. Always more rows. You do not remember a time when you weren't farming a row. In fact, you begin to suspect your entire existence is just an endless panning shot across this same rice field, and when you sleep, the camera zooms out but never cuts. Now, a digression. Taxes in the Edo period were paid not in coin, but in koku, a unit of rice equal to what one person consumes in a year. A daimyo's power was measured by how many koku his domain could produce. Your job, lowly and thankless, was to ensure that these numbers remained high. You are not a person. You are a calorie factory, the yield statistic. Each year the tax surveyors come with their kenchi-cho, survey maps measuring cords and cold eyes. They assess your land, your output, your attitude. If you seem too happy, they suspect you're hiding extra bushels. Afternoon brings a brief lull in rain. The wind shifts. You breathe in and instantly regret it. The smell is equal parts manure, stagnant water, and wet hemp. You cough, quietly, to avoid attracting comment. You dig again. A frog hops across your foot. You don't flinch. The frog doesn't either. You are coworkers now. Your fingers are raw. Your back pulses with a rhythmic ache. Your knees feel like bags of gravel. Still, you continue, because you must. Because stopping would mean falling behind. And falling behind means higher taxes next year. You have never fully understood how this logic works, but it feels emotionally true. Like most Edo policies. Near the end of the day, the nanushi, the village headman, returns. He has a scroll, and a face like a vinegar jug. You bow. He does not bow back. He unfurls the scroll and reads out names and numbers. Yours is not read aloud. This could mean one of two things. You've done nothing wrong, you've done something so wrong it requires private punishment. You smile anyway. Smiling is always free. It costs nothing, and it shows compliance. You pray it's enough. Evening creeps in like a thief. The fields darken. Mosquitoes arrive. You slap one on your neck. It bursts. It was pregnant. Your neck is now a crime scene. You rinse your feet in a puddle. This is both ineffective and symbolic. You pass the shrine on your way home. The fox statue stares at you. You bow to it, just in case. You can't afford more divine indifference. When you reach your hut, you collapse inside. Your spouse has already returned. Their hands look like yours, cracked, swollen, mud-colored. You nod in shared defeat. Dinner will be rice again, possibly with pickled radish if the gods are feeling whimsical. You sit, you exhale, your back screams. But for now, you are done. Tomorrow, more rows. You don't so much put on your clothes as negotiate with them. The first thing you'll notice about dressing in an Edo period village is not the color, or the cut, or the delightful absence of anything resembling comfort. No, the first thing is the smell. Imagine wrapping yourself in something that's absorbed the breath of cows, the sweat of 6 previous owners, and the mildew from being hung over an indoor hearth all rainy season. Now imagine that the fabric is rougher than your sleeping mat. That's your kosodi, a robe in theory, a burlap punishment in practice. You pick it up from the bamboo peg where it hangs, stiff from yesterday's smoke and the vague dampness of dawn air. It's hemp. Not the trendy kind that eco-influencers show off in pastel tones, but the coarse, scratchy kind that's barely one step removed from tree bark. It wasn't dyed for fashion. It was dyed to not show stains. The kosode is more than just a robe. It's your outerwear, innerwear, summerwear, rainwear, and funeral wear, depending on the day and whether it's been patched enough times to still qualify as clothing. A small child might have worn it last year. You might wear it for the next 10. Your name isn't written on the inside. The stains are. Slipping it on is like sliding into a promise that you will itch, that you will sweat, and that you will spend at least part of the day tugging at a seam that no longer meets itself. The sleeves are wide, not out of some spiritual enlightenment about airflow, but because fabric was expensive, and the wide sleeves could be used as pockets, hand towels, baby slings, or even makeshift gloves in winter. You could hide a rice ball in there. You probably will. There's no underwear, unless you're very lucky. Most villagers don't wear anything beneath their kosodi. That's not a daring fashion choice, it's a practical concession to poverty. Layers mean laundry, and laundry means hauling buckets to the river and slapping your dignity against rocks. As for socks, you might have a pair of tabi, split-toe socks that are never actually white except in samurai paintings. Yours are grayish, or maybe beige, or maybe just mud. They're crusty where they dried near the fire and permanently damp near the heel. But you pull them on anyway, because barefoot means frostbite, splinters, or stepping in cow leavings with nothing between your soul and soul. Footwear? Waraji. Straw sandals so thin and insubstantial that they make flip-flops seem like orthopedic loafers. They're tied with more string than structure, and by lunchtime at least one of the laces will snap and demand to be repaired with a shredded hemp cord, or if you're desperate, an angry prayer. You cinch your obi, the sash that holds your robe closed, not because modesty is a concern, but because everything you carry must be tucked into it. There are no pockets in Edo period fashion, just folds, layers, hopes. Men's clothing differs slightly from women's, but only in subtle ways. Narrower sleeves, darker dyes, and more room to pretend they have somewhere official to be. Women's kosode often feature faded patterns once meant to imitate something fashionable, like cherry blossoms or geometric waves, now reduced to vague smudges. If you're a woman, you probably spend half your life adjusting your garment for modesty and the other half hauling water or rice in it anyway. Children's clothing is predictably smaller versions of adult wear, just more threadbare and with extra patches. Babies often don't wear much at all, especially in summer. Diapers are a luxury. Hygiene is a hope. Fancy garments? Yes, they exist, but not for you. The merchants wear them, the priests, the daimyo's cousin's mistress's steward. You'll glimpse them on festival days, layers of silk, brocade belts, glimmering thread that shimmers in the sunlight like envy distilled into fabric. They rustle when they walk. Yours swish because you are wet. Let's pause for a moment to appreciate the sheer effort of laundering anything. You don't have soap. You have lye, made from wood ash, and a prayer. You soak the garments in cold water. You beat them against rocks. You dry them on that same soot-blackened beam over the fire, where they gather the scent of fish guts and burning pine forever. And ironing? You've never seen one. Some women use a hot, flat stone to press creases, but the rest of you just hope that the fabric's stiffness holds it in a vaguely upright shape. If it clings too closely to your form, it's either wet or you've passed out and no one's noticed. Weather affects your clothing like a prankster god. Summer? You'll sweat until your kasode is translucent and stuck to your back like a barnacle. Winter? You'll shiver in the same robe, now stiff as rice paper. You might add an extra layer, another kasode, or a battered jacket stuffed with wadded hemp that escapes like vegetable dandruff with every step. There's no waterproofing. Rain turns your robe into a soggy kite. Snow settles into the folds, melts, and then refreezes into icy lacework against your shins. You do not change into warm clothes. You merely shiver harder and hope your body gives up trying to notice. Accessories? You might have a scarf. Maybe a conical straw hat, the kasa, to keep off the sun or rain. It's wide, flat, and flies off your head the second there's wind. Still, it adds a certain dramatic flair to your silhouette, especially when you're trudging up a hillside at dawn, carrying buckets of something awful. And yes, in rare cases, you'll need to look nice for weddings, funerals, or shrine visits. In those moments, you borrow your cousin's decent kosode, which she got from her cousin, who once worked in town and saw an actual kimono once. That's as close to fashion as you'll ever get. What you wear is never just what you wear. It's how you carry your class, your poverty, your work, and your weather. It's protection and declaration, warmth and weight. Your kosode is your tent, your napkin, your shroud. And still, in this quiet, scratchy, smoky wrap of a life, you survive. You itch, you adjust, you live another day wrapped in cloth that doesn't breathe, but somehow still carries the memory of every task you've ever done in it. And tonight, you'll hang it back on the peg, let the smoke perfume it again. Let the wind whisper through its worn-out seams, because tomorrow, you'll wear it all again. It's not so much that the work begins early, it's that it never really ends. There's no morning bell, no gentle alarm, no clocking in. The rooster crows because that's what roosters do, not because your labor is scheduled. And when your eyes blink open, dry, smoky, and already itchy, it's not to start the day, it's to return to it. Sleep was a brief intermission. The show of toil resumes. You step outside, your kosode already sticking to your shoulder blades from the damp. Mist curls around the rice paddies like it's trying to hide the day from you, but no such luck. The haze lifts with the sun, and what's revealed is a life measured in host strikes, water levels, and the amount of sweat sliding down your neck. The field waits. It's always waiting. A stubborn sunken quilt of soil and water stitched together by back-breaking repetition. Your job, in the poetic language of the tax collector, is to support the domain. Your job in practice is to spend 80% of your waking hours in mud. The rice paddy is not the idyllic scene of a postcard. It's a mosquito nursery, a shin-deep trap of muck that clings like a needy spirit. Each step sucks at your sandals, which you've tied 3 times already with spare straw, and each motion forward is a negotiation between progress and slipping face first into yesterday's irrigation runoff. You carry tools made by someone in the village, usually older, always heavier than they should be. A wooden hoe, a bamboo rake, a woven basket strapped to your back. The blade is dull, the handle splinters, but no one complains, because that would imply there's an alternative. There isn't. Planting season? That means bending for hours, tucking seedlings into the flooded grid with the precision of a calligrapher and the posture of a defeated shrimp. Harvest? Now you get to swing a sickle that's somehow too small and too blunt at the same time, slicing through golden stalks while trying not to lose a toe. If you are lucky, it doesn't rain. If you are really lucky, it does, but just enough to keep the paddies from cracking. Too much rain and the banks collapse. Not enough, and you'll lose half your yield. Either way, you pay the same taxes. Nature is not your partner, it's your competitor. Breaks? Technically yes, realistically no. You might stop for a moment, wipe your brow, drink from a gourd filled with lukewarm water that tastes faintly of wood and regret. You might sit on a rock, but your body doesn't rest. It stiffens. And the moment you pause long enough to feel how tired you are, that's when someone from another plot calls out, "You're slacking." Children help, of course. You thought they had a childhood? That was cute? No, they're here too. In the muck, barefoot, chasing frogs, and occasionally planting rice under the supervision of an elderly aunt with a cane she uses for both pointing and striking. This is their schooling. This is everyone's. Work isn't confined to the paddies either. There are ditches to clear, fences to mend, thatched roofs to retie with straw ropes made from the remnants of last season's failure. Firewood must be gathered, and not just for your hearth. The magistrate's office needs fuel too. And guess who gets to deliver it? If you're a woman, your day is even longer. You tend the fields and the house. You plant the rice and boil it. You dry the daikon and pickle it. You wash the baby and then strap them to your back while you return to the paddy. You sew by candlelight after dark, your fingers red and calloused from both the needle and the cold. If you're a man, you're sometimes borrowed for community labor, fixing roads, building storage sheds, hauling lumber for the headman's new bathhouse. It's not paid, of course. It's your duty. And refusing is how people end up mysteriously taxed more heavily next season. Let's talk taxes. You don't really own your rice. Not in the way you think. A good portion of your harvest, sometimes more than half, is claimed by the domain, the local lords, the shrine, and anyone else who thinks they're due a cut. What remains is divided among your family and stored with elaborate care in a granary that leaks and a village prone to theft. You don't work for food. You work to deserve food. And even that is conditional. And God's help you if your crop fails. There's no insurance, no safety net. You beg your neighbors for help, who themselves have nothing. You dig roots, chew bark, grind millet so coarse it shreds your stomach lining. Hunger is not a punishment, it's a season. Occasionally, you do other kinds of work, weaving straw, shaping bamboo, brewing sake in exchange for rice. These are side hustles born not from ambition, but desperation. You hope someone from the nearby town will pass through and pay you a few mon coins for your trouble. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they laugh. And always, the village watches. The nanushi, the village headman, whose house is twice as large and suspiciously better thatched, keeps records. Who worked where? Who owed what? Who might be slipping? It's not surveillance in the modern sense. It's worse. It's personal. When the sun sets, you think the work is over. You are wrong. That's when the preparation for tomorrow begins. Tools are rinsed and rewrapped in cloth. Baskets are patched. Rice is cooked. Clothes are laid out to dry. You tend to the animals. Chickens, maybe a scrawny cow. You gather more wood because the pile always shrinks faster than it should. Your back aches in ways you no longer question. Your hands are so calloused they don't feel the splinters anymore. Your legs throb as if they're still moving through water long after you've returned to solid ground. But you don't complain. Complaining takes energy, and everyone is as tired as you, or more. In some parts of the country, peasants stage small rebellions. Tax protests, grain hoarding, whispered threats scratched into temple walls. But not here. Here, you survive by obedience, by humility, by keeping your head down and your rows straight. You were born to work this land. You will die on it. And if you're lucky, your children will inherit the debt and do it all again. The trouble starts with a cough. Just a little one. Dry, persistent, more annoying than alarming. You tell yourself it's the smoke from the hearth or the damp straw in your bedding. But it doesn't go away. It hangs on, tugging at your lungs like a tiny, invisible ghost. You ignore it. Because in Edo-era Japan, no one runs to a doctor for a cough. First of all, there's probably not a doctor anywhere near you. And second, you can't afford to appear weak. You work until your legs buckle, you farm until your skin cracks, and you cough only when no one's listening. But then your neighbor, old Oji-san, hears you hacking behind the rice granary and offers his diagnosis with the confidence of someone who's survived 4 famines and one very mysterious rash. Bad wind, he grunts. It's the wind from the west. It carries death. You nod, because that explanation, while entirely nonsensical, makes as much sense as anything else. When the cough gets worse, someone suggests Senji-sama, the Buddhist monk who lives 2 villages over and moonlights as a healer. He's not a doctor in the scholarly sense. He's more of a, well, he knows things. About herbs, about the body, about spirits, and about guilt, which is always part of the diagnosis. You arrive at his hut, a moss-covered collection of wood, prayer flags, and jars of dried everything. It smells like mildew, incense, and someone boiled every leaf in the forest and forgot to clean up. A bell chimes as you enter, and Senji-sama looks up from a scroll he's copying by candlelight. His robes are patched but clean. His hands look like they've crushed 1,000 leaves, and also possibly cursed a few local foxes. You describe your symptoms: the cough, the chills, the faint feeling that something is off in your chest, like a cat curled up wrong. He nods gravely. He asks if you've recently walked near a graveyard, if you've offended any ancestors, if you've eaten dried persimmon out of season. You're not sure, but the last one sounds familiar. Then the ritual begins. He places a small bronze statue of Yakushi Nyorai, the medicine Buddha, on the floor. He lights incense and chants something melodic and slow. You are not cured by the chant, but you feel very aware of your mortality, which is something. Next, he reaches for a bundle of herbs: kikyo, balloon flower, shiso, perilla leaf, and something that looks suspiciously like dried moss. He grinds them into a fine powder using a stone mortar and mixes them with warm water from a kettle that probably predates the Tokugawa shogunate. You drink it. It tastes like dirt, sadness, and that time you accidentally licked a toad as a child. But you swallow because you're polite. And terrified. He watches your face carefully, as if your grimace is part of the diagnosis. Then, without warning, he pulls out a long, thin needle. Acupuncture. Of course. He explains in detail you wish he'd skipped, that the flow of your ki is blocked, possibly by stress, possibly by a spirit that entered through your right heel. The solution? Insert needles into places that have nothing to do with your lungs, your elbow, your calf, the web between your thumb and index finger. Each poke is a whisper of pain, followed by a strange numbness, followed by the distant hope that maybe this is doing something. You sit there, looking like a sewing project halfway through completion, while Senji-sama prepares your take-home medicine. A bundle of herbs to steep, a tiny bag of salt to wear around your neck to ward off evil air, and a prayer scroll to hang over your door. All of this, of course, requires a donation. He insists it's voluntary, but the look he gives you says otherwise. Back in the village, people ask what he said. You lie and say you're fine. You say it's not contagious. You say it's just some dryness. But now everyone gives you extra space. Even the chickens. Sometimes, of course, the monk can't help. In more serious cases, fevers that don't break, blood that doesn't stop, wounds that turn black, there's the kusuishi, a traveling physician. They carry scrolls of Chinese medical texts, jars of powdered minerals, and the intense smell of camphor. They might arrive on horseback, but more often they're on foot. Their sandals worn to the thickness of a leaf. They wear robes too fine for someone who hasn't bathed in a week, and their eyes are always scanning for signs of illness, yes, but also for someone with rice to spare. The kusuishi listens to your symptoms with a mixture of detachment and pity. He prescribes things like deer antler dust, powdered pearl, or bear bile, none of which you have, can afford, or are legally allowed to possess. He sells you a small packet of bitter tea instead. He says to drink it at dawn while facing east and chanting a particular line from the I Ching. You drink it at midnight, facing west, out of desperation. Nothing changes, except now you can't sleep. Of course, there's the shaman woman, the Itako, rumored to live beyond the forest, who speaks to spirits and treats ailments with rituals involving drum beats and fire. No one visits her unless it's the absolute end of hope. And even then, it's said that the last man who went there came back mute. Not cured, just quieter. Mostly, people just live with their illnesses. Chronic pain, that's called aging. Toothache, you tie a charm to your earlobe and chew on rice husks. Diarrhea, everyone gets it. It's like a seasonal tradition, a rite of passage, a way to lose weight without trying. And yet, somehow, you keep working. You wake up, you tend the fields, you cook the rice. Your cough becomes part of the daily soundtrack, alongside the clack of hose, the slosh of water, and the low moan of someone with back pain pretending they're fine. Because if you're not dead, You must be fine. One day, a neighbor's child develops a fever. The parents try everything: rice gruel, prayers, a necklace of garlic. Nothing works. The village gathers. The child is carried to the shrine. The priest performs a purification. The child does not recover. The funeral is simple: a cremation, a chant, ashes scattered near the river. No one cries loudly. Mourning is inward, silent, like the way your lungs feel when you wake up coughing again and realize the medicine did nothing. You keep the prayer scroll above your door anyway, just in case. The sun slips behind the mountain like a guilty child caught stealing millet. Dusk arrives not with a flourish, but with a slow folding in of warmth, of movement, of ambition. Your limbs are heavy, not sore in a dramatic, heroic way, but drained as if your bones have been quietly hollowed out and filled with fermented rice paste. It's time for dinner. Again, you trudge back home, feet caked in fine dust, the smell of earth and old sweat rising like incense from your tunic. The field work is done for today, which means your reward is food. In the Edo period village peasant sense of the word, which is to say, not famine, your wife, or your mother, or your eldest daughter, depending on how misfortune has arranged the household hierarchy this year, has prepared the evening meal. She did so using the following ingredients: whatever was left, whatever wasn't moldy, and whatever wouldn't make anyone sick immediately. The hearth glows faintly in the center of the room. Above it, a blackened iron pot hangs like a medieval moon, its contents bubbling faintly. A smell rises from it: faint miso, charred radish tops, and something sour that might be pickled gourd or a trick of your tired nose. You lower yourself onto the tatami, which smells of feet and time. Your knees pop. You ignore it. Someone hands you a bowl. Dinner is thin brown rice gruel, mostly water, a single pickled plum, umeboshi, to jolt your taste buds awake, slices of daikon radish, boiled until sadness, a trickle of miso broth with 2 green onion slices floating like weary swimmers. You eat anyway, because in Edo Japan, food is not nourishment. It's a loyalty test. The rice gruel is lukewarm and clings to the roof of your mouth like a second skin. You chew, even though there's nothing to chew. Your jaw moves on principle. Occasionally you get a burst of actual flavor: sour plum, the faint bitter burn of daikon, or the whisper of fermented bean paste. But mostly, it's heat and effort. The warmth fills your belly. That's enough. Your neighbors are eating too. You hear it through the paper-thin walls: the clink of chopsticks, the exhale of someone blowing on hot soup, the soft cough of an elder who should have seen Senjima weeks ago. In this village, privacy ends at the rice paper. Sound bleeds through everything. You reach for the small plate of pickled things. There's a cucumber slice, a sliver of eggplant dyed purple-black, a mystery item that might once have been burdock root. The flavors are sharp, vinegary, aggressive, like a scolding, but they wake you up just long enough to finish the meal. Dessert? That's a future fantasy. Unless someone stashed a roasted chestnut or a dried persimmon from New Year's. You lick your chopsticks, just in case that counts. Conversation is minimal. Everyone is too tired. Words are conserved like firewood. You say nothing unless necessary, unless someone mentions taxes or rumors of a new daikon, tax officer, or the price of soy. Then the room briefly sparks with murmurs, mostly bitter. Then silence again. Your youngest child tries to slurp the last of the broth and drops their bowl. It doesn't break. It never does, miraculously. But the splash stains the tatami. They look up, expecting a slap. You sigh instead. That's tonight's act of mercy. The fire crackles. The air inside is warm, but not comfortably so. More like barely survivable. Outside, the wind picks up. You hear it thread through the bamboo grove behind the house, like an old woman muttering curses. Or maybe just gossip. The smell of food lingers in the air. Not a pleasant aroma, but a signal that, for today, you survived. And that brings you to the famine drawer. Every household has one, hidden under the floorboards, behind a loose wall panel, or wrapped in cloth at the back of a cupboard. It contains the emergency food: dried millet, old rice husks, fermented soy mash, or in desperate cases, tree bark flour. You haven't touched it in months, but you check it anyway. Like counting your blessings, but with mold. You tuck in the children, or the elderly, or your brother who can't farm anymore because of the shaking. Everyone lies down on futons that smell faintly of mildew and bodies. The air is full of the sounds of breathing. It's peaceful, in a way only deep fatigue can be. You lie back, and that's when your stomach gurgles. Because while you ate, you did not eat enough. You are warm, but not quite full. And that's the constant state of being a village peasant in Edo, Japan. Not starving, not thriving, just underfed. Like the flame of your soul is dimmed slightly, permanently. You remember that one time during the big harvest festival when the local lordsmen threw leftover fish to the crowd? It was grilled, fatty, warm. You caught a piece and ate it in one bite. You've never tasted anything like it again. The memory haunts your dreams like a ghost made of soy glaze. Sometimes in early autumn you fantasize about sweet potato. It's not native, but it's coming. You heard from a traveler that down south people grow it, rich, starchy filling. Imagine a whole one. You would hoard it, name it, worship it. Instead, you fall asleep with the taste of pickled radish on your tongue and the knowledge that tomorrow you'll eat almost exactly the same thing again. But you survive today. Barely. Some people fall asleep after dinner. You have responsibilities. Not legal ones, not farm ones, cosmic ones. The kind no one dares write down but everyone remembers. You glance at the door, it's already shut and latched. Still, something out there watches, not a person. Not quite an animal either, but it notices if you forget the salt. Welcome to the spiritual bureaucracy of Edo, Japan, where your neighbors are suspicious, the gods are territorial, and the ghosts have long memories. You rise from your straw mat and move to the corner of the house where the kamedana, the household Shinto altar, rests just below the roof beam. You bow twice. Clap twice. Bow again. You whisper something. Not quite a prayer, not quite a confession. Just a vague reassurance that yes, you noticed the missed offering last week, and no, it won't happen again. The tiny shelf holds a paper talisman from the local shrine, a miniature sake cup, currently dry, a pinch of salt in a chipped dish, a dried rice stalk that's turning brown but feels too significant to throw away. You refill the salt, you pour a drop of sake from the communal jar, you murmur a wish that the rats won't eat through the grain sacks this month. It's not formal theology, it's survivalism with incense. And that's just the inside. Outside, at the edge of your property, there's the hokora, a tiny stone shrine set into a tree stump. It's for the local kami. You're not sure which one. Maybe a rice deity, maybe something older, toothier. It doesn't matter. You owe it respect. You walk there in the dark, carrying a lump of rice wrapped in bamboo leaf. The wind tugs at your sleeves. Your wooden sandals catch on a root. The night buzzes with crickets. Every creak of bamboo sounds like footsteps behind you. You place the offering gently at the base of the shrine. You bow. You wait 3 seconds just in case anything answers. Nothing does, which, frankly, is ideal. Still, as you turn to leave, you feel watched. You don't look back, not because you're brave, because you know better. Back inside, your grandmother is whispering, to no one, or rather, to something only she can see. She sits by the hearth, rocking slightly, mouthing syllables in the old dialect. You recognize some. A chant used during funerals, a phrase about spilling rice inviting spirits. She clutches a dried persimmon in one hand like a talisman. You nod respectfully and back away. She hasn't spoken to you in days, but she hasn't forgotten to greet the zashiki warashi, the mischievous house spirits. According to her, the last time someone ignored them, a cow dropped dead. Or maybe a son fell ill. Or maybe both. Edo village stories blur over time. Truth and consequence swirl together like miso in hot water. In the morning, if your rice steams strangely or your sandals are reversed, it means something's displeased. You'll need to burn a pinch of mugwort, or maybe chant the Heart Sutra, or perhaps avoid your cousin for 3 days. No one agrees, everyone obeys. And then there's salt. Always salt. Salt in corners, salt on thresholds, salt on graves, salt after funerals, salt before weddings, salt for purification. Salt to block curses. Salt to prevent ghosts from following you home from the river. You once forgot to salt the gatepost after a neighbor's wake. That week your roof leaked. A coincidence, perhaps, but you haven't missed since. Even your meals play along. The pickles are more than food. They're spiritual insurance. Preserved in brine, they double as household talismans. If your pickles spoil prematurely, someone's jealous, or cursed you, or both. Better leave an offering at the Inari shrine, just in case the fox spirits are testing your patience. And the foxes, oh the foxes. Kitsune stories weave through your dreams like fine threads through a loom. Everyone knows someone whose cousin's uncle married a beautiful woman who turned out to be a fox in disguise. Or someone who talked to a traveling merchant only to find out he'd been dead for 7 years. Or the man who mocked a shrine bell and woke up mute. You pass the Inari shrine on your way to the river. You never look directly at the fox statue. Its stone eyes follow too well. But spirits aren't the only thing keeping tabs. Your neighbors are observant. That's the nice way to say it. If you skip your turn tending the shrine path, someone will report it to the headman. If your incense burns unevenly, people will talk. If you don't attend the harvest festival in full robes, wearing your family crest, someone will ask, with concerned eyes and poison behind their teeth. If you're feeling unwell, they mean, are you bringing shame? Are you tempting karma? You smile, you bow, you attend, you chant, even if your child has a fever, even if your back screams. Because in Edo, Japan, social cohesion is spiritual hygiene. One loose thread and the gods pull the whole family unraveled. Once, your neighbor's eldest son carved a crude idol out of driftwood and left it near the rice paddies. He said it was for good luck. Within a week, crows began gathering. Then the rice began to rot prematurely. Then his younger sister fell into the well. The idol was burned. The priest was summoned. The son was sent to a monastery. No one brings up the idol anymore. But people still look sideways at the family's front gate, as if something lingers. Superstition here is not quaint. It is infrastructure. It explains crop failure. It explains illness. It justifies punishment. It offers a reason when no other comfort exists. It binds the community tighter than any law. And in the night, as wind howls and trees knock against your roof, it reminds you, you are very, very small. You check the salt dish one last time before bed. You bow to the kamadana again, just to be sure. You whisper an apology for that one time, weeks ago, when you tripped on the way to the shrine and maybe accidentally cursed your own harvest. Just in case. As you lie back down, the shadows shift. Not menacingly, just enough to keep you humble. Somewhere outside, a fox laughs. Or maybe it's just the wind. Evening arrives on lacquered sandals. It doesn't storm in or creep up. It descends like a silken kimono slipping from a shoulder. The village begins to hum, not with work, but with anticipation. Tonight isn't just any night, it's festival night. The gods demand reverence. The neighbors demand pageantry. You, dear sleepwalker through the Edo twilight, must now bathe, starch your sleeves, and pretend you've been looking forward to this since the last one. When your sash fell off mid-dance and 3 grannies nearly fainted. The first clue something sacred is coming? Paper lanterns. They bloom like soft fireflies on every doorway, strung across the main street, casting an orange glow that turns even the most judgmental faces momentarily kind. They sway gently in the wind, painted with characters you can barely read. Names of shrines, prayers for good harvests, family crests, and sometimes, crudely drawn fish that your cousin insists are auspicious. They light the way, yes, but mostly, they soften the judgment. A gentle glow makes everyone look a little more gracious. You bathe, sort of. You scrub your hands and face with lukewarm water in a wooden basin, praying your sweat will dry fast enough to not ruin your robe. You dust yourself with crushed rice powder to mask the farm scent clinging to your pores. You tug on your best kimono, the one not patched at the knees, and cinch your obi tight. Your mother fixes your hair, tuts once and sighs, "It will do." A festival compliment. Then the noise begins. Drums echo from the shrine, slow and thunderous, like a heartbeat heard from inside a womb. Flutes join, sharp and reedy, weaving through the air like mischievous fox spirits. Children scream in delight. Somewhere, a dog barks at a mask and regrets it instantly. The streets are alive. Festival nights in your village are not just religious events. They're public examinations in manners, lineage, outfit cleanliness, and appropriate levels of joy. Miss the festival, and the shrine gods might think you're ungrateful. Attend sloppily, and the town might think you're cursed. Either way, someone's rice will fail next year, and a finger will be pointed. At you. Or at your great-grandfather's ghost. Same difference. You step into the street, trying not to trip on your geta. Stalls line the roads. Vendors shout about grilled fish, sweet dumplings, pickled plums, and sugar-dusted rice cakes. You don't have much money, but you have a few sen tucked in your sleeve, just enough for a skewered dango or a bad decision. Your cousin is already here, wearing a bright blue robe with pine branches stitched on the hem. Show off. He waves a paper fan and whispers to you that the priest's apprentice is drunk again. You both giggle, quietly, behind fans. Gossip is sacred, but timing is everything. You wander, watch, observe. At the shrine, dancers perform kagura, sacred theatrical dances offered to the gods. Their sleeves fly like cranes. Their masks are serene, blank, eternal. You feel something tug in your chest. Awe? Or just indigestion from a questionable pickled egg? You move on. Children dart between legs, swinging paper lanterns shaped like rabbits, foxes, or badly drawn dragons. The elderly sit near the shrine, drinking warm sake and commenting on the youth, their clothes, their posture, their prospects. You see her? One old woman whispers. Pregnant before the third moon, just like her mother. She bowed too quickly, another mutters, trying to impress the Yamamoto boy. That one's sandals don't match. Unlucky. You nod politely and keep walking. Halfway through the evening, the fireworks begin. Not massive like modern displays, no skyscraper bursting explosions. Just soft, sputtering chrysanthemums of light that paint the sky in brief, brilliant agony. They crackle overhead, echoed by delighted squeals and a few children crying because they forgot it would be loud. You tilt your head back, watching embers fall like dying stars. Somewhere, a flute continues playing. The air smells of sweet smoke and grilled eel. For a moment, you forget the tax collector exists, but the gods are watching, always. At the center of the festival, the mikoshi, a portable shrine, is hoisted by the strongest men in the village. They shout, stagger, swing the thing violently side to side, which looks suspiciously like fun, but is officially a spiritual duty. Each jolt is said to wake the god. You're not sure that's polite. But who are you to question theology expressed with shouting and shoulder injuries? The mikoshi passes by, nearly knocking over a child, and everyone cheers. Someone begins a chant. The crowd responds in rhythm. You shout too, mostly in the right places. But here's the thing about joy in Edo-era festivals. It's not free. You owe a donation to the shrine, to the temple, to the village headman, to the lady who lent you hair oil, to the carpenter who helped string the lanterns, to the god of rice, to the spirit of the mountain, to that one fox statue that no one likes to talk about. You reach into your sleeve and drop a coin into the wooden box at the shrine. It clinks. The sound echoes more than expected. You bow. You clap twice. You bow again. Your coin isn't much, but it's enough. You hope. The night deepens. The festival fades gently. The music quiets. The vendors pack up. Paper lanterns begin to gutter out one by one like sleepy fireflies. Laughter becomes murmurs. The gossip stops, only because everyone's gone home to digest it. You walk back through darkened paths, avoiding puddles, kicking off your sandals before entering the house. Your feet are filthy. Your sleeves are stained. Your soul, slightly lighter. You fall onto your futon, dizzy with light, sake, and the faint buzz of joy carefully allowed and equally carefully contained. Outside, a single lantern swings in the wind, forgotten. Inside, your grandmother is already snoring. Tomorrow, the rice must be threshed. The gods must be thanked. The gossip will circulate like a tide, some about you. But for tonight, you were part of the shimmer. You were part of the rhythm. You mattered, even if only for an evening. Welcome back to the soft paper folds of the Edo period. A place where love is less poetry, more paperwork. Where flirtation is rare, subtle, and deeply embarrassing for everyone involved. Where you don't swipe right, your parents do. Probably based on rice harvests, family connections, and how strong your future spouse's calves look while threshing grain. You do not fall in love in this village. You fall in line. Let's begin. Your romantic life begins, and likely ends, at the family hearth, where your mother is currently whispering with a neighbor while conspicuously not looking in your direction. You've seen this look before. The glint in her eye, the too casual mention of the honest young man from 2 rice paddies over. The sudden urge to scrub the one good kimono. Yes, it's happening. You're being arranged. This is not a date. This is logistics. You're scrubbed, brushed, and warned repeatedly not to embarrass the family. Not that you've ever not embarrassed them. Existing awkwardly is your primary talent. But now, your entire adult fate rests on an exchange of awkward bows and hopefully not tripping over your sandals in front of a potential in-law. Let's be clear. Courtship, in the modern sense, is a foreign concept here. There are no passionate declarations under moonlight. No steamy letters exchanged via clandestine couriers. Instead, there is a go-between, a village elder, midwife, or nosy aunt who functions as the emotional customs agent of rural Japan. She speaks for you. She negotiates your future. She probably already knows more about your body than you do, and she's not above sharing that information with your intended's family. The meeting takes place on tatami mats in a house that smells of miso, wood smoke, and generational expectation. The potential spouse is present, quiet, blank-faced, carefully avoiding eye contact like you're both competing in a game of who can be most repressed. Your parents do most of the talking. Topics include rice yield, weather, a suspicious mole on your uncle's shoulder, how many siblings the prospective spouse has buried. There is absolutely no discussion of feelings. That would be vulgar. Love comes after marriage, if it shows up at all. It is less a spark and more a smoldering coal you hope doesn't go out while you raise 5 children and share one futon. Still, the engagement is settled. You're told afterward, while kneeling in the dirt, washing the family's rice bucket. He seems strong, your mother says flatly. Not too many teeth missing. Romantic. The wedding is not a grand affair. No white dress, no bouquet, no awkward best man speech about your wild days as a single samurai. You were never a samurai. It's a ceremony involving sake cups, rigid bows, and at least one relative who spends the entire time loudly chewing dried squid. You are now officially wed, not because of some divine spark, but because everyone agreed it was time. You move in with your new family. This is not just a household. It is a system. Your mother-in-law now outranks you in every possible way. Her glare has the power to curdle miso. Her voice, sharp as fishbone, guides your every waking hour. Your husband? He is polite, occasionally present, emotionally available as a damp sandal. He works hard. You nod to each other at meals. This is considered affection. Sex is expected but not discussed. It happens in silence, on a futon stuffed with straw and the ghosts of your ancestors' marital regrets. Privacy is limited. You learn to be efficient. If you're lucky, there's sake involved. If not, well, that's just another duty on the growing list. Children arrive with regularity. Midwives come, midwives go. You scream into a cloth so as not to disturb the neighbors. After each birth, you return to chores faster than anyone in the 21st century could comprehend. No maternity leave, no healing playlist. Just raw fish and the distant sound of your husband hammering something in the barn. Years pass. Affection, if it ever existed, is expressed through gestures so minor they could be mistaken for muscle spasms. A cup of tea left near your futon on a cold morning, a quietly patched sleeve, a rice ball wrapped in cloth when you're sick. By modern standards, this would be called emotional starvation. Here, it is a stable marriage. Divorce is rare but not impossible. In some villages, women could initiate it by returning to their parents, but only if their parents hadn't died or married them off again behind their backs. More commonly, people just stayed together, out of duty. Out of inertia, out of the sheer weight of societal expectation pressing down like a futon filled with ancestral obligation. You sometimes daydream of romance, the forbidden, florid kind from kabuki plays and traveling tales, lovers reunited across mountains, poets drowning for passion. But your daydream ends when a chicken walks across your laundry. Love is beautiful, yes, but chickens are immediate. And so your romantic arc, such as it is, becomes a kind of slow-burning companionship, a routine of shared silence, weather complaints, and the occasional shared look when a neighbor says something especially stupid. It is not thrilling, but it is endurable. As you fall asleep beside the same quiet man for the 2000th night, you listen to the wind against the shoji screen and wonder if he will ever say something spontaneous. He won't. But he did chop wood for you today without being asked. And in this village, that's basically Shakespeare. It begins before your eyes are even open. Because here, in the sleepy belly of an Edo period village, childhood is not so much a season of innocence as it is a brief interlude between crying too much and working too hard. You are born with a job description waiting, and by the time your baby teeth fall out, someone's probably handed you a tool and muttered, "Better not lose it." Let's say you are a child now. A small, bony-limbed creature with wind-chapped cheeks and calluses where most modern children would have screen time. No one asks you what you want to be when you grow up, because congratulations, you already are. A miniature farmer, a proto-weaver, a young vessel for duty. Your first memory might be of mud, cold, sucking mud between your toes as you toddle behind your mother, who is balancing a basket bigger than you. It's not sentimental, it's not cinematic. It's just damp and necessary. You do not go to school, not unless you are very lucky, male, and the temple has enough resources to waste on parchment. Even then, the learning is less follow your curiosity and more memorize these characters and don't smudge the scroll. Most children in your village are taught practical knowledge, not from books, but from repetition. You watch, you mimic, you endure. Your life is an apprenticeship from the moment you can stand without falling over. Let's talk chores. You fetch water from a stream that's half frozen in winter and swarming with mosquitoes in summer. You carry bundles of kindling until your spine protests. You learn not to whimper when a splinter lodges in your palm. You are taught, sometimes with a swat, to sweep the earth floor without raising dust clouds. Because dust is disrespectful. And nothing is more disrespectful than idleness. Your toys are not toys. A rock, if round and lucky, becomes a ball. A stick becomes a sword, then a rake, then a spoon, depending on the season and your mood. Play is not a right, it is a stolen moment. And it usually ends when someone older yells your name with the tone that means, enough of that. You watch adults closely, not because they are particularly interesting, but because they are your future. And the future arrives fast here. At 7, you're expected to keep up. At 10, you're expected to contribute. By 13, you are simply small-bodied labor. Your mistakes are judged by adult standards. Your time is no longer yours. Children still laugh, though, because what else is there to do? They laugh at each other's awkward sprints, at the faces old men make when they nap with their mouths open, at the goats that eat laundry. Laughter is the brief defiance of schedule. And there is something else. A strange pride. Because when you do your tasks right, when you're praised for your neat bundle of firewood or your well-tended bean sprouts, you feel like a proper person. Not just a child. And that, in a place where survival is a group project, is the closest thing to self-worth you'll get. The seasons mark you, not with holidays, but with thresholds of obligation. In winter, you learn to stitch warmth into clothes that don't quite fit. In spring, you rise before sunrise to chase away crows from the seedlings. In summer, you fetch water until your shoulders ache. In autumn, you gather firewood until your hands blister. There are no breaks, no weekends, no recess. And sometimes, when the fields are empty and the sky is full of clouds that threaten nothing, you look at the trees and wonder what it would be like to climb one. Just climb, for no reason. Just because. And maybe you do. Maybe you get halfway up before someone sees and yells, and you're scolded not for danger, but for wasting time. You go back to carrying firewood. At night, you sleep like a stone. Not because the day was full of joy, but because fatigue makes philosophers of us all. And in your dreams, you're still carrying something. Childhood here is not a bubble. It is a ladder, and the first rung is always splintered. Let's begin with the scratching. Not a sound, but a presence. A gentle rhythmic chorus in the dead of night. Beneath your sleeping mat, along the edges of the wood, behind the kitchen altar where your aunt hides the last of the pickled plums. Something alive. Many somethings, in fact. Welcome to rural Edo, Japan, where the line between domesticated pet and parasitic nuisance is thinner than the rice paper on your wall. You awaken, not because of the scratching, but because of the cat. She's sprawled across your chest like a deity in repose, pressed so close that her breath fogs your chin. This is Chi. She's not yours. Technically, she belongs to no one. She merely permits you to feed her. And why wouldn't you? She is, after all, your only line of defense against the rat family currently running a full-scale feudal economy beneath your floorboards. Chi yawns. You inhale the scent of fish breath and muddy fur, like a shrine maiden who's been drinking cheap sake. Her fur is warm, and the warmth is a luxury. In a home with no insulation where morning mist creeps in between the wall slats, a sleeping animal is an asset. You tuck your fingers into her belly. She bites you, not hard, just enough to remind you of the terms of your unspoken contract. And then she leaves. The rats, of course, stay. They are eternal. They are everywhere. You name them after members of your extended family, mostly out of spite. That big one that steals dried squid from the cupboard? Uncle Jiro? The twitchy one that stares at you during meals? Aunt Kay. The one missing a tail who is somehow still faster than you? That's your cousin. You've stopped trying to trap them. The last time you set out a bamboo snare, you caught a frog. The frog looked at you like you were the problem. And in a way, you are. Because the moment you drop even a single grain of rice, the vermin come. And you always drop rice, because the chopsticks are slippery, and your hands are always cold and tired, and occupied with something else, like carrying water or chasing a runaway chicken. Ah yes, the chicken. It's not a pet. Not really. It lays eggs, occasionally, when it feels like it. It also screams like a banshee at 3 a.m., defecates exclusively on your sandals, and has a vendetta against small children. You try not to take it personally. You feed it food scraps and whisper apologies after stepping on its foot. It still tries to peck your eyes out. You begin to suspect the chicken is possessed. You wouldn't be alone in thinking this. Your neighbor swears his rooster crows only when someone nearby is about to die. He's not wrong. Last winter the rooster crowed, and 3 days later, old Mrs. Taki slipped on a patch of ice and fell into the river, drowned in water so shallow a cat could have walked across it. The cat didn't. The cat was sleeping. But not all creatures here are hostile or indifferent. There is the old dog who lives beneath the shed. No one remembers when he arrived. He just was. Covered in scars, blind in one eye, smelling faintly of mold and old rope, he greets you with a tail thump every time you bring him a leftover bone. You don't pet him. He doesn't ask for it. But there's a mutual understanding, forged in silence and shared poverty. When the other children mock you for sleeping on the floor, for your tattered kimono, for the fact that your father's debts mean you'll never leave this village, he doesn't. He just thumps his tail. The affection you receive from animals is sparse and often barbed. The affection you give is hesitant, tinged with the knowledge that livestock is not forever. Your neighbor's pig, who once followed him like a second shadow, is now salted and hanging above his hearth. Your little cousin's favorite duck mysteriously ran away and returned as soup. You learn early that names are dangerous. Names mean grief. So you don't name the goat. You call her Goat. That's it. She eats laundry. She once tried to eat your sleeve while you were still wearing it. But her milk has kept your baby brother from starving. So you tolerate her. And she tolerates you. Sort of. She headbutted your uncle last week. You suspect she knows more than she lets on. But for every semi-pet, there are 10 uninvited guests. Fleas live in your bedding, lice in your hair. You've plucked ticks the size of plum seeds from the back of your knee. You've scratched so hard your skin bled. You've boiled water to kill them, used camellia oil to drown them, prayed to the hearth god to drive them out. Nothing works for long. You dream of a life without bugs. A house with sealed windows, floors without gaps, food that doesn't need to be defended, a cat that only purrs and never bites. But even as you dream, you feel something crawl across your ankle. You sigh, you flick it away. The monks say all life is sacred. Even the ones that live in your armpits. You try to believe them. But when you find weevil larvae in your rice again, wiggling, smug, protein-packed little monsters, you begin to consider apostasy. Insects don't just live in your house, they are your house. The paper walls attract moths, the wood attracts termites. The smoke in the rafters is not just for show, it's a defense system. The soot helps keep the beams from rotting. The ash keeps certain bugs away. Not all, of course. Just the ones polite enough to leave when smoked. The rest stay. They live longer than your grandmother. They might outlive you. Still, you adjust. You sweep more. You store grain in ceramic jars, hang herbs to repel the worst offenders, sing lullabies to the cat so she'll stay close. You begin to understand that in this world, comfort is an illusion, and cleanliness is a fantasy made up by people who've never watched a beetle crawl out of their bathwater. And yet, there is a strange kind of peace in the chaos. You know these creatures. They're familiar, predictable. The chicken is an idiot, but it's your idiot. The cat is a demon, but she sits on your chest like she cares. The dog doesn't ask for much, but he listens better than most people. The fleas? Well, they keep you humble. The vermin are not the enemy. They are your fellow survivors. And in a world where so much is uncertain, weather, harvests, health, taxes. It's oddly comforting to know that the rats will always be here, scratching, watching, waiting for you to drop that one grain of rice. And you will. You always do. The wind arrives before the sun, slipping between the loose panels of your wooden walls like a thief in the night, except it doesn't take anything. It gives. It gives you chapped lips, a stiff neck, and a chorus of creaking joints before you've even stepped outside. Welcome to the weather in your Edo period village, where the 4 seasons don't just mark the calendar, they mark your body, your harvest, your sanity, and not one of them is gentle. Let's begin with summer, because it's the season that most often tries to kill you in your sleep. It's humid, not the polite kind, the kind that sits on your chest and whispers in your ear while you sweat through every layer of cotton. Mosquitoes bloom like cursed flowers, humming in the dark, seeking any patch of skin you failed to wrap or fan. You sleep with a woven bamboo mat pressed against your back and a bucket of old rainwater under the eaves, which might collect more bugs than it repels. In the morning, your kimono clings to you like a wet rag. You stink, everyone stinks, and the communal bathhouse is overcrowded with bodies desperate for some illusion of coolness. Except the water isn't cold. It's lukewarm, heated slightly by the sun, but mostly by the sheer proximity of suffering human flesh. You wash anyway. Rice paddies, of course, love this weather. So while you roast, the plants thrive, and the village elders smile. But beware. Smile too much and the weather will change. Superstition or not, this land has a sense of humor. Because after summer comes the monsoon. Rain is a performance here. It doesn't drizzle. It doesn't weep. It crashes like drums on your thatched roof. It flattens paths, turns your fields into soups, and invites mudslides to rearrange the geography you thought you knew. You pray your roof holds. You pray your walls don't leak. You pray you remembered to lift your millet off the floor. Then there's typhoon season, or as it's sometimes called, autumn. The wind that once whispered now howls. It tears down prayer flags and rips straw hats from your head. The sky turns a color you don't have a word for. You hear trees scream as they snap. Some say the gods are angry. Others say it's just the season. Either way, you tie everything down. Your cart, your door, your hopes. Winter doesn't arrive with fanfare. It seeps in like an old regret. Your breath becomes visible, not in dramatic puffs, but as a slow, reluctant fog that clings to the corners of your mouth. Your fingers are numb before you've even tied your sandals. Fires burn low in clay braziers, sending up just enough heat to make you mourn what warmth used to feel like. Snow is beautiful until it traps you. Then it's just another thing to shovel, another layer of resistance between you and your already impossible chores. Your roof sags under the weight of it. Your legs ache from the cold, not just outside, but in your bones. Your only relief comes from sipping weak barley tea and wrapping yourself in a futon so thin it feels like lying beneath a sheet of frost. Your clothing doesn't change much between seasons. You simply add more of it, layers of homespun cotton, patched wool, whatever the neighbors haven't borrowed. Your outer robe stiffens in the cold. Your sandals slip on the icy paths. You fall, you laugh, you bleed, you continue. The elders, of course, say they remember harsher winters. It's always harsher in stories. But even they admit, this year feels different. Every year feels different. That's the terrifying part. You can never predict it. You can never outwork it. The weather is not your enemy. It's your indifferent landlord. Spring is meant to bring relief. It brings allergies instead. The cherry blossoms arrive. Brief, stunning, and deeply useless. You celebrate their fleeting beauty because it's the only fleeting thing in your life that doesn't itch, bite, or mold. But spring is also the season of melting, of thawed mud, of flooding rivers, of roofs that drip for days. You wake to birdsong and roof leaks. One of these things fills your heart with joy. The other fills your socks. Still, there's a rhythm to all this, a cruel kind of clockwork. The seasons shape your duties. They teach you humility, or exhaustion masquerading as wisdom. You don't plan for them. You brace for them. You don't own land here. The land owns you. And the weather is its tongue. Sometimes in the brief moments of calm between disasters, you find beauty in it all. The way mist coils through pine branches at dawn, the scent of ozone after a lightning strike, the hush of snowfall before the village wakes. It's sublime. It's poetic. It's also freezing, damp, and deeply uncooperative. But you rise anyway, bundle your robes, tie your straw hat low, and step outside. Not because you're brave, but because no one else is going to haul that firewood. The sky might be gray, or blue, or purple with warning, but the fields don't care. And neither does the wind. It just keeps coming. And now, dear time traveler, the sun has long since slipped behind the crooked thatched rooftops. The fields lie in a hushed tangle of frog song and drifting smoke. Your calloused hands are finally still. Your back is sore, your eyes are heavy, and your feet, well, they still itch from that encounter with the ditch leeches. You survived a full day in an Edo period village. Congratulations, I suppose. Though survive is doing quite a bit of heavy lifting here. More like you endured it. Quietly, dutifully, with a furrowed brow and far too much responsibility for someone who woke up with hay in their teeth and rice taxes in their nightmares. If you learned anything tonight, besides the fact that fleas are communally owned and tea is just hot grass water with aspirations, it's that life in a Japanese peasant village was less about the pursuit of happiness and more about the persistent management of discomfort. There were no noble swords flashing in the moonlight, no elegant courtly romances, no wise robed masters offering you destiny. Just you, a bundle of sweet potatoes, a crumbling shrine with moldy amulets, and the quiet, aching hope that maybe, just maybe, the taxman forgot you this month. This was a world of duty without drama, of daily life carefully stitched together by routine, rice straw, and resignation. A world where the loudest revolution you could dream of was planting barley instead of millet, and praying your neighbors didn't gossip you into oblivion for it. Even the animals were unimpressed. The cat glared, the dog sulked, the chicken, still traumatized by the passing tanuki that one time last autumn. But somehow, through the aching backs and splintered sandals, the freezing rain and sacred fungus, the people endured. With bowed heads, bitter tea, and a kind of strength that doesn't come from shouting, but from doing the same difficult thing. Every day. Forever. And you? You did well. You kept up. You didn't scream. Not audibly, anyway. Now, slowly, gently, you can feel your spirit stepping back. Out of the dirt-floored hut, past the altar of salt and paper, through the rice fields and spiderwebs, back toward the humming quiet of your own bed. Listen to the modern world beginning to return. The low buzz of electricity, the even hum of your fan, the sterile luxury of a mattress that doesn't crawl. Breathe in, exhale. You're back now. No more tax scrolls, no more millet porridge, no more suspiciously judgmental monkeys watching you pee in the forest. Just you, safe, warm, fed, unbitten. Still awake? I admire your commitment to historical suffering, but if your eyes are already drifting closed, then rest well, night wanderer. The past is where it belongs, behind you, and whatever tomorrow holds, at least it won't involve hauling compost uphill while a Shinto priest yells at you about foxes. Good night, and remember, it could always be worse. You could still be there.